Imagine yourself on a beautiful night celebrating 20 years of marriage with the person you love most in the world. Everything seems perfect. The harmony of the home is established, and happy memories fill every corner of the house. However, during a romantic dinner, your wife, with whom you have shared 2 decades of your life, reveals an unexpected desire. She wants to open the relationship, adding a new dimension that involves your best friend. How would you react to this unexpected proposal? What would you do if the person chosen to enter your intimate life was someone so close and important to you? Follow this surprising story and see how far choices can take an apparently stable marriage. John always believed that his relationship with his wife, Emily, was storm-proof. Celebrating 20 years of marriage, they shared a comfortable life and well-established routines. They had built a beautiful family with 2 children who were already in college, and a home that was a portrait of their achievements and realized dreams. One night, during a candlelit dinner, John looked into Emily's eyes and said with a tranquil smile, "Do you remember how it all began, Emily? It feels like it was just yesterday that we met." Emily smiled back, holding John's hand across the table. "Of course I remember, John. You asked me out with that awkward yet charming way of yours. I never regretted saying yes." The harmony seemed complete, with annual trips and weekly dinners that kept the flame of love always burning. On one of these trips, while walking along the beach at sunset, John stopped and pulled Emily into a tight embrace. "Emily, you are the best thing that ever happened to me. I can't imagine my life without you." She returned the hug, feeling the sea breeze and the strength of his words. "I feel the same, John. These 20 years have just been the beginning of a lifetime together." However, on a quiet night, while enjoying a glass of wine on their porch, Emily brought up a topic that had never been discussed before. With an uncommon seriousness in her expression, she mentioned, "John, I've been thinking, despite all our happiness and stability, I feel that something could be added to our relationship to bring a new spark." John, surprised, tried to hide his concern. He placed his wine glass on the table and looked at Emily with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "What do you mean by that, Emily? I thought we were happy." Emily sighed, looking at the horizon. "We are, John, but sometimes I feel that routine consumes us. Maybe we should try something new, something we've never done before." John pondered for a moment and then suggested, "What if we started taking more exotic trips? Places we never thought of visiting? Or maybe we could try different activities like dance classes or even rock climbing." Emily smiled slightly, appreciating John's effort to understand her feelings. "That sounds interesting, John. I believe these new experiences could really help us rediscover each other in ways we never imagined." But Emily had something different in mind. She explained that her proposal involved a more intimate and delicate dimension of their relationship. "John, what I'm trying to say is that maybe we should consider opening our relationship to a third person." Emily's words made John's heart freeze. He tried to keep his composure, but his mind raced to understand the implications of what she was suggesting. "Emily, are you serious? Do you think this could really help us?" Emily held John's hand affectionately, noticing his apprehension. "Yes, John, I've thought a lot about this. I believe it could enrich our experiences and strengthen the bond between us even more." John took a deep breath, trying to process the idea. I don't know, Emily. This is very different from what I imagined. How do you think this would work?" The conversation extended into the night, with Emily explaining her perspectives and the potential benefits of exploring this new dynamic. "I don't want you to think that I'm dissatisfied, John. On the contrary, I love you deeply, but I feel that this could bring a new dimension to our relationship, something we've never experienced before." John finally nodded slowly, still trying to understand everything. I need some time to think about this, Emily. It's a big change, and I want to make sure we're doing it for the right reasons. Emily squeezed his hand, giving him a comforting smile. Of course, John. I'm not asking for an immediate decision. I want us to think about this together, calmly and with understanding. With the silence hanging in the air, John asked hesitantly, Emily, do you have someone in mind for this bold proposal? Emily took a deep breath before answering, Yes, John. I've thought about Eric. The shock on John's face was evident. Eric wasn't just a friend. He was practically a brother to John. They shared years of memories, from school days to the challenges of adult life. Eric, John repeated, incredulous. You mean my best friend, Eric? Emily nodded, trying to remain calm. Yes, John, I know it's a shock, but think about it. We trust him. He knows us like no one else, and I believe this could work harmoniously. John was silent for a moment, trying to process what he had just heard. Emily, I've always trusted Eric with my deepest secrets and fears. Knowing that you're thinking of him in this context, it's a profound shock. Emily lightly touched John's hand, trying to convey her sincerity. I know, John. That's why I thought of him, because he is trustworthy and knows us so well. But I understand if this is too much for you. John shook his head slowly, still stunned. I need more time to think about this, Emily. It's a lot to absorb at once. Emily squeezed his hand, her eyes full of understanding. I understand, John, and I'm not pressuring you to decide now. I want us to think about this together without rush. The impact of this revelation left John stunned. He felt a mix of betrayal and confusion. Emily, how can you consider such an idea with Eric? He is someone so close and dear to me. Emily tried to explain, her voice soft and calm. John, I didn't want to hurt you. I thought a lot before suggesting this. I believe Eric could be someone we can trust. The conversation ended without a conclusion, with John needing time to process the situation. He stood up slowly and said, I need some time to think about all this, Emily. Emily nodded, understanding John's need for space. I understand, John. I'll be here when you're ready to talk again. Later that night, John sat alone in his office, his mind spinning. He knew he needed to talk to Eric, to understand his intentions and feelings about Emily's proposal. But part of him feared the answer he might receive. The next morning, John decided to call Eric. Eric, can you come over? We need to talk. Eric arrived shortly after, a concerned expression on his face. Of course, John. What's going on? John hesitated for a moment before speaking. Emily told me something last night. Something about the three of us. Eric was surprised but remained calm. What exactly did she say, John? John took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. She suggested opening our relationship and mentioned you as the third person. Eric was silent for a moment, processing the information. John, this is unexpected. I never thought you was considering something like this. John looked at Eric, searching for any hint in his friend's eyes. And you, Eric, how do you feel about this? Eric sighed, trying to be honest. John, I would never do anything to hurt you. If this is something you both truly want, I'm willing to talk about it. But my priority is our friendship. John nodded, feeling a small sense of relief. Thank you, Eric. We all need to think carefully about this. Our friendship means a lot to me. Eric placed a comforting hand on John's shoulder. I'll always be here for you, John. We'll get through this together, whatever the decision. As the days passed, John felt increasingly consumed by the need to uncover the truth behind Emily's words. The night still accompanied him in his search for answers when he decided, with trembling hands, to go through Emily's phone. The messages between her and Eric were like an open book he had never wanted to read, but now he couldn't ignore. Accessing the conversation history, John's heart stopped for a moment. There were the exchanged messages between Eric and Emily, more explicit and compromising than he could have ever imagined. In one of them, Eric openly expressed his interest in joining the relationship. "Emily, I'm willing to participate in whatever you propose. I believe this could be something special for all of us." Another message from Emily revealed her intention to persuade John about the idea. "Eric, I'm thinking about how to approach this with John in a way that he can accept. He needs to understand that this is something that can strengthen our relationship." John felt a lump in his throat as he read the messages, feeling betrayed and confused. The discovery was a devastating blow for John. He felt betrayed not only by his wife, but also by the friend he considered a brother. The pain of the betrayal mixed with anger and despair, leaving him in a state of emotional numbness. Each word read in the messages was like an echo in his mind, resonating the worst imaginable betrayals. With a heavy heart and a turbulent mind, John knew he needed to confront reality head-on. He decided it was time to have a direct conversation with Emily, to hear from her the reasons and motivations behind her actions. It was a necessity not just to understand, but also to express the magnitude of his suffering and the disappointment he felt. The confrontation with Emily was charged with intense emotions. When John revealed that he knew about the messages, Emily initially seemed surprised, but her expression soon changed to one of regret, mixed with defensiveness. "John, I can explain," she began, her voice trembling. John interrupted, his voice hard and filled with pain. "How could you do this, Emily? Reading those messages between you and Eric, it was devastating." Emily tried to justify her motives, her voice full of emotion. "John, I felt that something was missing in our life. I thought this change could bring a new dimension to our relationship, something that would make us stronger." John, struggling to find sense in her words, shook his head. "Did you really believe this was the solution? To betray my trust with my best friend?" Emily stepped closer, tears streaming down her face. "It wasn't meant to be a betrayal, John. I truly believed this could be good for us. I just wanted to be honest about my feelings." John felt increasingly distant from the woman he thought he knew. "Honest? You were hiding all this from me, planning behind my back with Eric." Emily wiped away her tears, her expression showing regret. "I know I was wrong, John. I should have talked to you from the beginning. Please, believe that I never wanted to hurt you." With the phone firmly in hand, John confronted Emily with a cold determination. The messages between her and Eric were not just recent conversations, but a long-hidden history that had been going on for 2 years. As John scrolled through the messages, each line revealed more depth of the deception. There were scheduled meetings, declarations of affection, plans shared without his knowledge. The feeling of betrayal was so intense it took his breath away. The impact of the revelation was devastating. The trust John had placed in Emily and in Eric, someone he considered a brother, was completely shattered. He felt betrayed not only by his wife, but also by his longtime friend. The combination of anger, despair, and sadness left John in an emotional stupor, each word read echoing in his mind as a cruel reminder of the betrayal. The depth of the deceit extended far beyond what John could initially imagine. The details of the plans and conversations shared between Emily and Eric demonstrated an intimacy and complicity that made the betrayal even more unbearable. The pain of the discovery was sharp, mixing with a sense of unreality as John tried to process the situation. Anger and pain converged in a single decisive moment. John, with a trembling but firm voice, told Emily that she should leave. There was no room for discussions or excuses that could remedy the depth of the betrayal. John's cold determination made it clear that he was not willing to forgive or listen to justifications. Emily, in turn, was in tears, but her words came out laden with fury. She accused John of never noticing her needs and desires, emphasizing that she had felt ignored and neglected throughout the marriage. Emily quickly gathered her things, anger replacing her initial regret. Each of her movements reflected the tension in the air. She declared that she was going to Eric's house, where she felt valued and loved, something John had not been able to provide. Emily's words were like a final blow, intensifying the sense of betrayal John felt. John remained silent as Emily walked out the door, the sound of her steps echoing in the empty house. The determination on his face did not mask the deep pain he felt. He sat down, still trying to process the magnitude of the betrayal and Emily's accusations. Each of her words resonated in his mind, mingling with memories of the happy moments they had shared. After Emily left, the house, once full of life and laughter, now echoed with a deafening silence. John collapsed on the sofa, tears streaming freely down his face. He felt betrayed, abandoned, and incredibly alone. The revelation had not only destroyed his marriage, but also the friendship he had valued so much. The weight of loneliness and betrayal was overwhelming, and he wondered how he could have been so blind. The house, which was once a refuge of love and security, now felt empty and cold. Every corner brought back memories of the happy moments he and Emily had shared, and each memory felt like a stab in the heart. John wondered how he could have missed the signs, how he could have trusted so blindly in two people who meant so much to him. In the days that followed, John struggled to find a reason to keep going. The house seemed like a constant reminder of everything he had lost. Every corner brought memories of a happier time, which now seemed like a cruel illusion. He began to question all his choices and the trust he had placed in the people closest to him. Meanwhile, Emily, now with Eric, tried to justify her decision, but deep down, the guilt consumed her. She knew things could have been different if she had been honest with John from the start. Although she tried to rationalize her actions, the truth was that she felt deeply regretful. Emily's anger did not hide her own pain and regret, knowing that despite everything, she had lost not only a husband, but also a life partner who had always been by her side. Emily and Eric spent the first days trying to adjust to the new reality, but the atmosphere was tense. Eric, although initially willing to support Emily, realized the depth of her internal conflict. He tried to comfort her, but their conversations were often interrupted by heavy silences and looks full of uncertainty. During one of these nights, while Emily was alone, memories of her time with John flooded her mind. She remembered the happy moments they shared, the laughter, the plans they made together, and the difficulties they overcame. Each memory was a painful reminder of what she had lost by not being transparent. Emily knew that regardless of how things progressed with Eric, she would carry the weight of the guilt for betraying John's trust. She wondered if she would ever be able to forgive herself for her choices. The image of John, desolate and in tears, continued to haunt her, making it impossible to ignore the pain she had caused. In the following months, John was consumed by a need for justice that bordered on obsession. Emily and Eric's betrayal had not only destroyed his trust, but also triggered a deep desire for revenge. He spent sleepless nights meticulously planning how he could deliver a blow that would be both silent and devastating. His revenge needed to be perfect, leaving Emily humiliated and Eric furious with her, but without either of them suspecting his hand behind the events. John began investigating every detail of Emily and Eric's lives, looking for weaknesses and information he could use to his advantage. He combed through social media, old emails, and even hired a private investigator to uncover anything that might be useful. His plan required patience and precision, and he was willing to wait as long as necessary for everything to unfold exactly as he imagined. The first step of his plan involved subtly manipulating Emily's finances. John, who still had access to some shared accounts, began making small transfers and payments in her name, creating a financial mess that would eventually be discovered. By the time Emily noticed the errors, it would be too late to remedy the situation without causing a scandal. Simultaneously, John started an anonymous campaign to discredit Eric at work. He sent compromising information to Eric's boss, insinuating that Eric was involved in unethical activities. John knew that Eric valued his career above all else and that any blemish on his reputation would be devastating. Meanwhile, John began sending anonymous messages to Emily, suggesting that Eric was cheating on her with someone else. He knew that the insecurity planted by these messages would erode her trust in Eric, creating growing tension between them. Each message was carefully crafted to appear genuine and was accompanied by fabricated evidence, such as doctored photos and fake conversation records. Months passed, and John watched from a distance as his plan slowly took shape. Emily and Eric began fighting more frequently. Emily's finances were in disarray, and Eric's reputation at work was being questioned. John felt a grim satisfaction as he witnessed the disintegration of their relationship, a reflection of what they had done to him. Despite his obsession with revenge, John knew he needed to be careful not to arouse suspicion. He maintained a calm facade and continued his daily life, avoiding any behavior that might betray him. His revenge was meticulous, orchestrated with the precision of a maestro, and he was determined to see it through to the end. When Emily and Eric's relationship finally collapsed completely, John was there, watching from afar. Neither of them suspected that he was behind their misfortunes. Seeing Emily desperately trying to understand where she had gone wrong and Eric furious over the supposed betrayal, John felt a cold satisfaction. His plan for revenge had been executed with precision, and he could finally smile, feeling that justice had been served. And you? What would you do in John's place? Comment on what you would do, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to continue following more stories like this. See you in a new story.